Ahoy! Headhunter! What is up, everybody? Joel Algie, host of the Headhunter Hideout live show on LinkedIn and YouTube. I am honored to have Annie Lieb with me today.
Hi, everybody.
If you don't know Annie, I don't know what you're doing, but you're gonna get tomorrow. You're gonna get some time. How long are you going live tomorrow for? Is it?
I believe they have me for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, same here. So if you don't get enough of this, just tune in tomorrow and
tomorrow for more. Lots of juicy stuff going on.
8 hours for us today. So yeah, so Annie, we were talking before just about all the stuff that can go wrong with a live show, and why don't you lead it with just like what happened earlier in your live show?
This is just today, but I'll tell you that if anybody's watching me and they've been following me at all, they know that my life is I know I'm on a lot of lives. I know I do a lot of lives. So obviously the more lives you do, the more things can go wrong and happen while you're going live. I understand statistics, right? But it's unbelievable. Dudes were just downstairs trying to put in my dishwasher. They were yelling and moaning and groaning because they couldn't do it. Then they slam the door as they leave. I'm on a live. I'm on my Something New live with our CEO, Scott, and a partner of mine, Allie Fisher. And we're talking. And the guy's like, hello, from right outside my bedroom door, which is right outside my office. I mean, he comes with this. It's I'm like this. I'm on a live podcast. That's all I can do. And I have 2 kids who are, my son undoubtedly will jump on and say hello because anything other than to do virtual school, right? So he'll jump on and say hi if we're on YouTube. And my daughter's like, Mommy, I can't get this printed. And I'm just like, oh my God, my head's actually going to explode. So here I am. And
there you go.
It does happen when it undoubtedly will, that this is my life.
Well, I think I just even think with everything just going on right now in general, I wonder, to me, I think that's refreshing for a live show, because if I was on a live show and I hear kids, or I'm in a call and I hear kids, I think it automatically just reminds us all that we're human and we're people. And I've actually really liked this kind of nice shift, but I've experienced similar things on, I was telling you 4 weeks ago, I had a guest on called Jeremy Jensen. Do you know Jeremy Jensen?
I don't.
So Jeremy is killing it, man, on just in Houston, got this amazing recruitment firm. He's just.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. I know. I remember. I watched it. I watched it. Sorry.
Yeah, and so in that edition, I'm up north. I'm at my wife's dad's church because it's the only place they got internet, and I'm in this little prayer closet, so you can see the door, and this guy just randomly busts in halfway through, and I was he's like, oh, what's going on? I'm like, it's a live show.
It's a live show. Here I am.
And then Jeremy's like, oh, is that the pastor or something? And it was hilarious, but then also I think it's just what can you do? I mean, it's just that's the life we're living.
As the host, I think sometimes it can be a little nerve-wracking because it's your live, it's your channel, so sometimes it feels a little bit God, come on, can you guys be quiet? I'm doing something, but then as me right now, I love being on the other side where it's your channel and your show where I can just kind of chill and just be what happens. And if somebody popped in the back of your screen, I would be like, hey, what's going on? But that's just me as a participant versus a host. It is not easy to do all the lives that we do. You and I are on live all the time. It's it's trying sometimes.
I know. I think we were originally going to go live two weeks ago, and I had just had a crazy Friday that Friday. So I was like, hey, can we cancel? Can we reschedule? And I don't, I think it does take a lot of energy, and anything takes it. It's podcasting takes a lot of energy. But I think with the live stream, it's you have to, I think with the podcast, you can even edit things, and it's kind of more almost relaxed. You're a little bit more controlled. You can edit things before it goes out. With the live stream, there is that, you have to bring the energy. You have to bring something in that moment. And it is a lot. Especially if you're going live multiple times, So
back to back or for a while. Yeah. I mean, so my experience, Joel, with live is, I mean, if anybody's probably heard the story, but Jason Leibowitz interviewed me, and his is not live. And we talked for a while, and he was like, we got off the recording, and he was like, you need to have, oh, Jason, I'm talking about you. Wait. So I said, he said, you got to do a podcast, or I mean, it's something that happened like that. And I was like, all right. And we got off the phone, and like 45 minutes later, I produced my first audio only podcast. And that's how Living with Annie Lieb podcast started. But really, my lives, I got LinkedIn Live, and what came of it was Gabe Leal and Mike Arano were like, we're going live in 5 minutes. Get ready. And I was like, I'm a girl. Like, I take a little bit more to get ready. Like, it's like, I'm not just going to pop on. And they were like, no, this is how we do it. We're rolling 5. So they threw me to the wolves. And I just, sort of was almost like, it's like I was raised like this, like I was raised on live. So I don't even really know what it's like to have a show that isn't that's recorded, where shit's just going to happen in my life, and everybody's going to see it. And that's just sort of what I put out there,
I love it. Well, I think, I don't know. It's definitely, it's a different skill set. I love the fact that, even with this, I can, click and actually interact with people. And obviously, Jason, we were talking about the 24-hour marathon tomorrow as well. I know both of us are hosting, so we're excited about that.
Wait, what's going on tomorrow? There's something tomorrow?
Yeah, it's like something like 36 hour, 24 hour,
Connect-a-thon.
The Connect-a-thon, which is, man, I love the 24-hour live stream that Jonathan and Luke did. I thought that was really cool, but I love that we're getting more creative with this stuff, and I think it adds a lot to the platform as well. So it's like cool to connect with everybody, but then obviously for like just doing things for a cause. And I told Luke and JP that I was just like, you guys should have done it for like charity or something, or just like done it for something, instead of just kind of doing it for the LinkedIn record. It was the first though.
Virgin 24 hours people,
That's right.
But let me ask you a question. Of course, like I'm turning this around like it's my show. It's not my show, but I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts on like what I did with JP and Luke was I was actually buying because my life, as we talked about, I was buying a car. I was in the midst of like signing the papers to buy a car when they were on my live. So I like went off and I let them sort of run it behind the scenes. So it was almost like my guests were running my show on my channel. And because we had 4 hours. So I was like, I got it, guys. I'm buying my car like right now. And so they started around it. What are your thoughts on giving up like your control of your channel for a little bit? Like, what do you think about that?
I kind of like it. I like giving that accessibility. I mean, I like being involved in it as well, but I think, for some reason, both of those guys don't have live. So I thought that was kind of cool that they did that. But I mean, 4 hours is a long time, just to be doing something. So I don't know. I think that's kind of cool, except it could be disappointing though. Like if I'm clicking on your channel.
I thought you were being mean and trying to be funny and saying they don't have lives.
So
that's why I laughed.
Questionable.
That was so mean, Joel. But I thought you were just kidding. But then I realized you meant lives, and then I'm
the
like,
LinkedIn live streams.
What are you laughing at? Okay, so they don't have LinkedIn Live.
They don't have the LinkedIn Live.
Okay.
But they might not have lives either. They go live on Friday nights, like every Friday night.
Listen, I mean, you do what you got to do. Listen, who's really got like a Friday night nightlife these days? I mean, are you like going out to bars, like hanging out?
Yeah, I hit up the social distance restaurant and get curbside pickup. It's pretty exciting.
It is exciting. I do DoorDash. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's invigorating. Like waiting for the food to come. That's the best part. Well, we got Ted. Ted just said great authenticity.
Thanks, Ted. How are you?
Yeah, that is what
I like that word.
That's what this is all about. And then Rich just said 30 years in recruiting and first live feed I've watched. Need to work in with my sports. Dude, totally. You should totally do that, man. That's
dude, 100%, man. 100%. People want to watch. People watch kids opening toys. Like you can make a show about anything and be exciting and bring the heat, you know? I'm like
100%.
I'll come on, I'll talk sports anytime with you.
Well, I got a question for you. So then, because we do have to keep it somewhat, obviously, Headhunter Hideout. We got to
Oh, I'm
keep it
sorry.
somewhat
Okay, all right,
recruiting.
recruiting. Let me
I
get my
would,
head in the game, no pun intended.
I would love to. I'd love to hear about your somewhat new role and
Okay.
what you're doing. And yeah, just why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you're doing? Because I think the work that you guys do anyway is awesome. I think what you're doing within the recruitment space is awesome. I think the stuff that you do on LinkedIn in terms of like getting everybody engaged is way different than what anyone else is doing. All of you guys are super authentic. So why don't you just tell us about what you're doing and as it relates to recruiting, at least.
So, not like their advice, because anyway, it's true. I'm sure that's true. So I started off, with my own company doing like pharmaceutical recruiting, pharmaceutical consulting. And, it's Annie Lieb LLC is my company, right? I started off while I was in school I went back to school at 40 to get my executive MBA, which I know is hard to believe that I was 40, but now I'm 42. So I got my MBA. And in the midst of that, I built this, small business. And then I'm like, you know what? This is really making me happy. This is not what I want to be doing. This is not like, it's just, it's not the impact that I want to make. So I shifted on I'm not a coach, but I sort of became like a guide for people that are looking to find their most authentic selves, right? And this is how I started with clients coming to me and meeting me and seeing how I'm sort of just me and bringing that every day with every ounce of me is what I try to do. And people sort of have been stuck and wanting to get to that place. So we talk about that and we meet about that and we work on gratitude and meditation and mindfulness and things like that. And then in the midst of that, something new came across my desk and I was like eyeing up this company and I saw what Scott was doing a little bit of. And then Greg Briscoe, who's a team member of mine, reached out to me and was like, let's have a meeting. And we ended up getting on the phone. And I realized that like basically Scott McGregor was like, Annie, who are you? I see you everywhere and you need to come work with me. Like this is, and I was like, all right. And he knew not only, I don't even think it mattered that I had recruiting background with Korn Ferry or, had done recruiting in my past, but I think what was most important is that what something new does is it really finds the authenticity in companies. I'm not on the recruiting candidate side. I'm on the something new lab side, which is where we actually educate our clients on talent acquisition, talent onboarding, and retention. So we do those 3 pillars, so the overarching talent strategy sort of component to things. And we meet with clients, a lot of startups recently, just to sort of build their talent strategy foundation, because what do we always say? People over everything, right? And people have heard that and they're like, yeah, people over everything. But what we really mean is that when you put your people first, it will build and add to your bottom line at the end of the day. And it's going to build through that an incredible company culture. So that's what we're sort of teaching our clients right now. We have 59, I think it's 59 right now, modules that we teach them. We advise them for over a year, for a year of advisory, where we're connected with them and we teach them and we coach them on how to do talent strategy correctly.
So is that like meeting with them? So you're meeting with them like multiple times a week? I mean, I got to imagine the amount of like kind of like hands-on coaching that's needed.
It's very high touch. It's very, very high touch. And it's really, it's not them sitting and watching videos, right? And it's really high touch involvement with the client and one-on-one questions and really personal. And yeah, it's definitely several hours a week with key stakeholders, but it's a really personal sort of advisory service, which is my favorite part about it, because you get to sort of touch on that authenticity piece. So anyway, the point of what my whole point was that it meshed perfectly with my Annie Lieb brand. Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? All of this is people over everything. That's my mantra too, even though that's their hashtag, right? So living with Annitude is very much a people over everything sort of thing. So I ended up, I'm the vice president of advisory. So Something New Labs, I run that with Allie, and that's what we're doing. And it's really awesome. And then the other side, there's another side where there's Bree and Diane and Greg, and they do a lot of the candidate recruiting, and that side of things.
Was it, did Allie just post? I thought I saw one of her posts today, or maybe it was Bree. It was someone. Okay. But they mentioned that like 20% of people quit in the first
That was Allie, I think it was
week.
yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, I read that today. It's amazing.
People forget, leadership forgets. They want to just hire, and then they're like, here's your laptop and here's your passwords,
Yeah.
And it's like there are systems and processes that we have simplified in our modules, but that we can implement, show them how to implement to make things streamlined and keep your employees happy. So start them off, find the right ones, start them off happy, onboard them, and then keep them happy. And it's unbelievable, how it can really change the whole trajectory of your company when you do things like that correctly.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Obviously, you come from working at Korn Ferry and some of these larger recruitment companies, and there's so much of an emphasis on just like, speed to fill and filling things quickly. And obviously as a recruiter, especially a third-party recruiter, you don't want to slow down that process to necessarily find the right person. That's not always the mentality. A lot of times it's like, let's fill this as quickly as possible.
Sure.
But it compounds that issue. And I think when it comes to recruitment, it's like that time to fill is it's the metric that everybody wants to kill it on. But in reality, it's just you're doing yourself a disservice if that's all you care about. And
there's an element of patience in all of this. That is not, patience doesn't mean sitting and resting on your laurels, right? Like, it doesn't mean you're sitting back, and people need to understand that making a priority and finding the right talent and making sure you're interviewing correctly, asking the right questions, having the right job description, all of these are different pieces that we teach how to do this, proactively and efficiently and in a streamlined way of systems and processes that can really help with getting the right person in. And that's going to, once you have your system down, you'll know how to do it. But I think too many companies don't have a system. It's like, Scott and I always talk about like, have Betty interview her and then bring in Bill and then maybe Fran will interview her. It's like, what do you mean maybe? Like, you can't do things like that because it just won't get you where you want to go.
And I think, it's a challenge. It's a major challenge because people I just think they go into business and, just even in being in business for myself for 2 months. All right. And I had a little taste of it, but all of my focus is literally on a marketing and sales strategy. And like, how do I bring the business in the door? And even when I was in recruiting, it was like, I was so trained on just, okay, what's the open need? I'm just gonna start sending you candidates and let's fill it. And I really was never even trained on like, okay, let's actually take a look at like what your actual process is. Like, I might ask it to see how much of a pain in the butt it's going to make a placement. Cause the quicker the process, the easier it is for make money. So if someone's like, I'm going to interview 10 times, I might say, okay, I don't want to work with you, but there's not a lot of consulting that recruiters do to actually help with that. You
just nailed everything. This is why Scott McGregor started something new. He started it because he was a CRO and he thought to himself, no one is teaching me how to do this process. No one is showing me the systems and ways to make this easier and better. They're just floating me candidates after candidate after candidate. And it's like, people don't even think about things like the interview process and the questions you're asking. And when you come out of an interview, right, as a leader or, as a manager, and you say, I like her. Yeah, she's good.
Totally.
What are you basing that on? And how is that going to line up to what Bill thinks and what he's basing it on? So we actually have methodology and an algorithm and a way and a tool that can be used to put everybody on the same playing field. That in and of itself is worth our price.
100%.
So it's like, it's really interesting, that if you think about all of the companies and all of the ones that don't survive and all of the ones that are just doing mediocre, think about if they had a talent strategy in place that makes sense, for the company and it can be a streamlined process. How much would that add to the bottom line? How much would that change the company culture?
You and 100% agree. And I think, it's that back end care of obviously you guys recruit people as well. So having that full capability of going, okay, we're going to recruit. We're also going to onboard. We're going to coach you on how to actually build the team, keep that person in that seat. Because obviously if you have somebody like that post said, where they quit within 2 weeks or they quit within the first day, it's like, you've just lost so much money. I mean, there's opportunity costs in there. There's reputation. There's like, it's just the list of things goes down, and you can list how much it costs, but there's like other costs which are intangible. And
yeah, I mean, what if you keep them for 3 months? We have a module about the 91st day. What do you do after your onboarding process of how do you continue this confidence in your person that you've put in this seat? Now, let's say you're at the 91st day and shit falls by the wayside. You don't have a process in place for what's going to go on now. Yeah. And to keep them retained. And then you got to start the process over. Now, how much money's been lost? And now that seat's open. We have something called a lost revenue calculator, where there is an algorithm that we use where we can actually put in the numbers and say, this is, what you're hemorrhaging by not having somebody in the position. And this is how we can make this better for you. So I find it so intriguing and interesting that very few companies do this.
Well, I think it comes, it's almost like, if you're a recruiter, obviously you kind of want there to be open needs so you can fill them. And so I see people who put the guarantee on it, that maybe they put like a 6-month or a year-long guarantee. But it's almost like, it's just short-sighted thinking, I think, is what it honestly comes to with most recruitment companies, because it's going, how do we fill it, instead of like, how do we solve the actual problem that you have, and work with you to solve the problem. So like you said, if you help a company to actually grow their bottom line, then obviously they're going to keep on growing. They're going to keep on using you. Yeah. But I'm surprised. I'm honestly really surprised too that a lot more recruitment companies aren't looking at that back end support and really understanding and how to do that. And
someone said to me, Joel, the other day, someone said, "Who's your competition? Like, who's your biggest competition?" I said, there really isn't. Like, there isn't. Who's doing this? Who's working on the overall overarching talent strategy with companies? And Scott always says, teach a man to fish or give a man a fish, right? Like, are we giving them a fish, or are we actually teaching them to fish? We're teaching the company how to do these things correctly and efficiently.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to go to some of these comments here too. Xavier just says, Annie Energy is on 10. I love it.
Thank you.
Insight. I say great insight. No, I'm just Allison said preach. Yeah, Allie
jumped on.
And I love how you guys support each other, by the way. And then Tom just says there are 2 types of agencies: resume peddlers and TA partners. Let's just touch upon that a bit, because TA partner, I think these words kind of get thrown around a lot, like partner, consultant. Nobody really wants to say, hey, I'm a recruiter. It's your consultant, a partner, and all this sort of stuff. But talk to me about like how easy it is to, like, even from the advisory side, as you build these relationships, like how easy is it to win the rest of the recruitment business? And it probably sounds like a dumb question, but.
Well, here's what I'll say. I think if you're doing it correctly, it naturally makes sense, right? Like, it fits in nicely together. If you're not going in and managing the talent strategy correctly, then why would the recruitment side? It's like a cycle, right? One is going to fit right into the other. It's like a puzzle piece that's going to continuously go around and fit into the other. If you're recruiting correctly for them, then they're going to say, wow, you guys really have that down. Let's look at our talent strategy process that we have going on, and vice versa, and so one really fits nicely in the other. If you're doing one differently than how it's being done right now, if you're doing one correctly and efficiently, then you're going to win the other business.
Well, do you see it? Is it usually like you win the recruitment business first, or the advisory business, or it's a little bit of both?
Well, I think something new started doing more of the recruiting side of things. Labs has really just been built.
Got it.
We're really just a major launch is going on right now, where we're just starting to dig in deep with our clients. So I would say recruiting first, but it can definitely go hand in hand and work both ways.
And Rich just says, funny, I've loved the word recruiter or headhunter, shaking my head at TA, which I think maybe that's talent acquisition.
I think it's talent acquisition.
Hey, I got, obviously, I mean, if you look at my name on here, it's Headhunter Hideout. Headhunter is
Well,
everywhere.
I like that you put that out there, because a lot of people, kind of shrug off that word, or they don't like that word. They don't want to use that word or be called that. But I like that you kind of just show up and you're like, yeah, we're talking about headhunting.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Well, and I think, I'm sure, I mean, Rich has been, he's 30 years in recruiting. So
Yeah.
obviously
He's been around a
you
while.
don't stay in recruiting for 30 years without knowing actually how to do a good job and
Sure.
treat people the right way. I think the negativity comes in with, the bashing of recruiters on LinkedIn and like people ghosting and technology advances, but not necessarily like candidate experience advances. All these types of things can lead to negative connotations for the rest of the industry. So then they're afraid to say, "Hey, I'm a headhunter." I think that's can be a real issue. But yeah, I'm also curious. With the advisory business and the recruitment business. I mean, you guys work on all referrals, right? So the client referrals, like you're not like actively out there like cold calling to like sell the business. I mean, maybe there's some of that, but how has that experience been different from like your time at Corn Ferry or some of your other experiences within recruiting? Like, how do you see a difference between how the business is won?
Well, it's reputation, and it's your own company culture. So the something new brand, sort of carries itself a little bit and a lot of bit in what I do. So everybody sort of knows it. We're just really getting out there and telling people what exactly something new does. Everybody kind of heard recruiters, headhunters, but something new does things a lot differently than other recruiters and headhunters. And if you want to know more about that, you can definitely reach out. But we always say think differently. So I think that it's not the rush and fill. It's not the quick get the business. It's look, with Something New Labs, if you're not going to we're going to coach you through this and be your advisor. But if you're not going to do the work, don't bother. Like we've said that we've actually turned away because it's such a high touch business. We only have right now the bandwidth to do so much and have so many clients, right? So we've actually said this probably isn't going to be a good partnership with a company before, because they wanted us to do it for them. And it's an advisory and it's a coaching, but they have to be able to put in the work. They have to want to do this. So in that way, it's very different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I forget who I had on a couple of weeks ago. They had mentioned something about how in recruiting, like we're so quick to take on any business just in a recruiting world. It's like, if there's an open job order, we'll jump all over it. But you have to get to a point where you're doing exactly what you said, which is looking at the business that's coming in, analyzing it, actually consulting, and then making an estimate, or, not an estimate, but taking a look at it and going, this isn't actually going to help the business because we need a relationship. And I think it's a hard transition to get to, but if you can get there as a business and you get to that point and going, you know what, if you're not going to put in the work, or on the recruiting side, if you're not going to give us feedback, or we don't have that high touch point,
do those things. Like, let's talk about your job description for just one example, or your interview technique, right? Like, is this just a paper that you pulled out of a file cabinet that's been the same job description for this many years? Whereas, have you really dug in deep? What are the words that you're using? What is the person that you're really looking for? Instead of just words in the ATS system that's going to pick people from resumes, and I have a real issue with ATS systems. But I mean, look, some companies are going to use them and some aren't. That's why I like, Joel, to get in with startups and companies that are starting out, because rather than, as Ali always says, do damage control, it doesn't mean it's not possible. We can pick up where they are, we can meet them where they are, but it is definitely refreshing to meet with these startup companies who really want to lay out their talent strategy and lay out their foundation and get things moving on the right terms right away.
Yeah, no, I love that. And Rich just said too, Corn Ferry wanted to hire me to head up EDA when it was hot, but I didn't have a degree. Man, that's what held you back, which is just, to me, that's insane. But so I started an EDA agency that billed $2 million a year for a decade. I mean,
where's Rich? Is he in Florida?
I'm not, Rich. Where are you at? I don't want to. But yeah, I think, man, it's everything you're saying is I think it's the future, and particularly with like working with the startups, I think that it's great because you get to really, like you said, like build in with them and get them on that right foundation. And obviously it's like,
your whole point, sorry to interrupt, but real quick,
yeah,
to the whole point of like doing things a little bit differently, like they might not be ready yet. And you have to be able to say, okay, like let's wait and let's revisit this next quarter to see where you are. Like pushing it is another thing. Whereas like, with recruiters or the headhunter mentality, it's like, let's get in, let's do this, let's teach you this, let's get it done. And instead it's like, let's take a look at the whole long-term strategy here and see if this might make sense in 3, 6, 9 months. And you have to be able to sometimes step away from business for a few minutes, like it's not about getting paid right this second. It's about the long term.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. And Rich said he's in Vegas. Again, going back to the wagering, that's probably where that came from. But anyway, I think it's a challenge because so many headhunting agencies, they're obviously about the bottom line, which it's business. I get that. Like you've got to make money. I think what I love about what you guys are doing is it's long term, and I think you get off that hamster wheel then of just bringing in new clients, and I've seen it where a huge issue is like you can get to a tipping point with clients where, let's say you've got a mid-sized manufacturing client you're working with, and they're your client that you've worked with for 5 years. Like there can be a time, even like a timestamp on that relationship, because if you're billing them $350,000 a year, at some point they might just be like, hey, you know what, we're paying so much to you, that now we're gonna move. And so I think being able to establish those different types of relationships where you're also helping with the onboarding, but you're building those relationships long term, it's massive. It's huge, and I think more of our business is going to go that way, to be honest. But it's a process.
It is a process, and you make a really good point about that long-term thought process and doing it differently, and kind of that mentality and that mindset of just, what about like meaningful connection? What about like making a connection and building trust and relationships with your clients? I mean, that's what we do. That's what makes something new so different, is the meaningful connection and the way that we build trust and relationships with our people, and the way we do it with each other, and the way we do it on the candidate side, and the way we do it on the client side is so important and so different than the way a quick fill is going to do things, even if you are billing that amount of money.
Yeah. And I think that's where times like this too, where obviously business landscapes change and the way that we're building relationships change. There's a lot of changes that I think are going to come from what's going on right now. But looking to the future, one of the things I love that you guys are doing is obviously you're so big on LinkedIn. Like every single team member is, you guys are supporting one another, but you're supporting other people. What do you think? Because it's interesting to me, like, yeah, we're just kind of getting the name out, or like the momentum's going. I mean, I feel like you guys have been really consistent, but it sounds like that brand awareness is just kind of continuing to grow at a pace. So tell me a little bit about that, and like how that fits into what you do, and like how you guys actually kind of work a strategy on social media like that.
So our entire, hey there, Luke. I'm such a Luke fan.
I know. Luke, we were trashing you before, so I'm glad you didn't see it earlier. We just said you didn't have a life, but I was joking. I said that, but I meant LinkedIn lives, not lives.
I didn't say that.
Annie did not say that. But anyway, Luke, good to see you.
I would never.
No, and Luke is a great guy, by the way.
So we don't have a strategy in that we meet about it and say, this is what we're going to post about. We all post authentically from our hearts.
Yeah.
So, when you see something new post, it's consistent in that it's genuine, and it's about, there's a theme, of sort of people over everything, which is what we preach. But it's not a sit around at a meeting, and we do meet every day. We meet every morning. all of us. And we talk about, some of our accomplishments and what we're doing and what we're excited about. And a lot of times like kids are running in and like somebody's got a bathrobe on or like, some different things are happening. And we talk about personal stuff. We talk about professional stuff, but our strategy is really just put people first and teach that. But when it comes down to like, when I started a couple months ago, like I really think that everybody knew about something new, what the name, right? But did they really truly know how different something new is? And then I know because it really, Allie and I really just started, digging our heels in here with this, but like with something new labs, I mean, people just didn't know what it was. So my whole intention and strategy when I post, besides my personal brand stuff, of just people first and motivation and inspiration and authenticity, I think my whole strategy with something new is just to help people understand what Labs does is that how we teach and educate based on talent strategy. So I think it's really more of an overarching talent and people over everything strategy. Versus you're going to do this, you're going to do this. But that support that you see is not asked for. That's like real, genuine support, where I really, truly love and support everybody on the team. And it just, the camaraderie is mind blowing sometimes.
And sorry, Luke, I just want to.
That's okay.
This is my favorite one right here. I enjoy.
Oh, okay. I did talk shit. I said, you don't have a life. Get off live, dude.
He says that he loves that though. And then he said, "Who else is here? Say hi." But I what I love is like when I engage with your content, anyone at something new. But when I see the engagement too, it's like it's not like you guys, because I've seen this too, where like this trend's kind of coming in where people are saying, "Well, if we teach let's teach the corporate team like how to post, and we'll train them in it." And I think that can work to a certain degree, but you have to like have a passion for sharing. And so when I see your guys' engagement, it's like there's still that meaningful, still meaningful comments, and there's still like a meaningful. So it's not like I look down and I just see your post and it's got like all of your coworkers saying, great. It's like there's meaningful conversation. And I think that's hard to, that's kind of like hard to manufacture.
Yes.
If you haven't,
hard to make that happen. Yep.
It's really, really hard. But I think more people are trying to do that because they're like, oh, it's free advertising. But the warning is like, unless it's like coming from a place of like actually what you think and actually who you are, and it's authentic, it's not going to be like as effective as you think, and it could actually be detrimental in some ways.
People throw around the word authenticity way too much, and I think that you have to check yourself sometimes, and you have to say to yourself, like, am I really coming from an authentic place? Am I really like, that's why I show like all of me, I'm having a rough couple days and I just want to give you guys this, that just happened. And and I'm not saying it's wrong or right. It's just who I am. Like people engage with me and tell me like, wow, that really inspires me because of the authenticity piece, like we don't have to have this whole pretty picture bow on top,
Yeah, I'm all about. Yeah, I mean I'm a great example of that.
We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be no bloopers. Life is filled with bloopers. Let's show them. And when people see that, and that you're willing to put yourself out there, and consistently too. This isn't something like I didn't get 200 and 300 people saying stuff to me. Not even that, as compared to some people, that's not even a lot. I don't even look at that. But like what I do look at is a lot of times I look at the number of views, and I'll tell you why. I care about the number of views because that's how many people I impacted that day, hopefully. So it's not about likes, and I love the comments because they warm my heart, right? But to me, it's like the one metric I look at sometimes with videos, especially, is views, because I'm like, you know what? Out of those people, I'm hoping that I made an impact on a substantial amount of them. And that's truly from my heart. Like there's nothing disingenuous about me. So I put it out there, and I like, if I could give any advice to anybody about posting, you of all people know this, post consistently and post from your heart. It's not about anything else. People want real. Yeah. And when you can bring real, it's going to get engagement and it's going to get people thinking. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to impact people. It's truly people over everything, people first. And that's my mentality.
Yeah. Well, it shows. And
Thank you.
there was a post last week. I remember, and I did think that, because it's like you just post from like a vulnerable place and you post from a really real place. And I think that's what I would think of like when I think of you. And so I think that's something that's what you want though. You want people to, we're not going to necessarily remember the individual messages that you post.
Right.
Like I can't remember like the exact post you posted 2 weeks ago, but it's that feeling of like, okay, is this person actually being real? But I just wanted to Franchelle Franklin just asked, Annie, do you work with program managers who are responsible for overseeing talent acquisition, recruiting, or primarily the head of HR top level managers? So I thought that was kind of a good question just to feel.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk to somebody who's interested in hearing more. You know, I really work a lot with founders and CEOs right now and top decision makers, but that doesn't mean that I'm closed off to talking to anybody about talent management and strategy.
Cool.
You know, that's basically it. I mean, I don't close off to conversations with anybody, but for, you know, in my current client base, I'm dealing with a lot of founders and CEOs and actually CFOs and COOs.
Cool. Awesome.
So,
great. And then Allie just said, when you hire people intentionally, there's a synergy and no need to devise a plan. Great way to put it. And it naturally comes together. It starts with hiring and team. And I'm getting so inspired just because I'm like thinking of how companies, like even just like this whole idea of like professional and like keeping everything like perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it impacts the way we've looked at even social media, where, you know, you want images that like look great and they reflect this like thing. Yeah. But when you get down to it, and especially now, it's just like, it's hard for me to believe that if you're a manager and you're meeting with people and you're really getting to like how they're doing or like what's going on, it's like those conversations are gonna get messier. There's things which are blending in. And I'm not saying we have those conversations and just, it's always like negative or anything like that, or there's a negative connotation, but there has to be, especially now that work has literally invaded the home.
Yes.
And schools invaded the home. It's like, you have to be able to, I think, just connect with people as a whole in a real way. So I'm curious, like when you work with people, when you're working with people and you're advising them, what do you think that, what do you see as like, are there any like common challenges that you have, or like when you're kind of coaching people, like, are there any kind of like common trends that you guys see as far as like, even with some of the stuff you're saying, like how to get that to hire that great person or on board? I'm like, what are some of those common challenges that you see?
You know, I think you already touched on it, and it's just mindset. I think mindset management is so huge, just to help people to get to the right mindset of that, instead of short-term fill or get that seat filled, or, you know, just how we've always done it. You know, I think those are important things that when you can adjust and help somebody, coach somebody through a mindset of, let's shift to the bigger picture. Let's shift to the overall strategy. You know, let's shift to long-term. I think when you can do that, then you can really get a really nice foundation for your strategy. And I think that a commonality is just people sort of being stuck in a way that they've always done it, maybe, or the way that they have heard it's done or think it should be done. And, you know, it's really just adjusting and broadening your mindset.
Awesome. Well, hey, I feel like last time we did a live too on your live show, it went by really, really, really quick. But I know we're like 45 minutes, so I usually kind of wrap the show up around this time. But I just want to, one of the things that I've started doing, at least with these live shows, is just offering up like advice for particularly people who are like new to the recruitment industry right now, and with it just being kind of a unusual time, or just obviously just things not necessarily looking across the landscape of things as they did a year ago. Like, what advice would you have to somebody who's just starting in recruiting? Like, what would you have them focus on the most? And it could be professional, personal, just whatever you think they would need to hear.
I think that there's a lot of tools at our fingertips, specifically LinkedIn, but a lot of social media tools that can really be used with creativity now that weren't able to be used when I started because there wasn't any that existed. So it was like picking up the phone and dialing, and there's definite ways to put yourself out there. Let it be known what you do. Don't be shy. Don't be scared to say what you do. And if you're a headhunter, like Joel has Headhunter Hideout, like put it out there. This is what I'm doing. Be real, be you, show up as you authentically. And people will be attracted to that because that's what people want. They want real. So if that's both personal and professional, just come to play, show up and just be you. And you'll differentiate yourself from everybody else.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you jumping on, and we made it through without any craziness. So this is
crazy. Like, I feel like my kids left. Did they go to the mall? Like, I don't understand.
I know. I'm waiting for some crying in the background, but
Annie, thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And tomorrow, what time is your session for the
2:30 to 6 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, cool.
2:30 to 6.
And then I'm actually right after you then because I'm doing 5 to 8. So
then we'll lead right into you. Hit me up with a message.
Definitely. And anybody who's out there that isn't connected with Annie, if you've got questions on what she does, connect with her on LinkedIn, send her a message. And yeah, I appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, buddy.
All right. I'm going to end.